Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. We've had a big info dump from Cloud Imperium's Chad McKinney, the lead gameplay engineer for Star Citizen, answering various questions again, with a big focus on the dynamic universe simulation, points of interest, renting habs and hangars, iCache, server meshing, and much, much more. Let's jump straight into the questions and answers. For the dynamic universe sim, is the 9:1 NPC versus player ratio still the plan? Basically, there's supposed to be 9 or 10 NPCs for every one player. However, in the birthday AMA recently, they said, we won't need more than 100,000 per system to get the desired effects. Chad responded, what you consider the ratio is going to get very fuzzy because of quanta, probabilistic generation, virtual AI, and missions. In some ways, you could view it as way beyond that ratio, just depending on what you count as an NPC. Next question. Tony Zorovic had previously said server-side object container streaming will break us free from these limitations in terms of how many locations and how much content we can put in a solar system. So that will allow us to put in more outposts and more space stations, more derelicts, more caves. So is server-side object container streaming still receiving updates? And when might we see the world more populated with more points of interest? So Chad replied, server-side object container streaming did work as intended, and Tony's point is still valid. There are other reasons why we haven't pushed the envelope on the number of these satellite areas, including work done on the procedural generation tools to make that content interesting and improve the pipeline for authoring it. The move to iCache will also help us in that direction, since we can pre-seed the database with the content and not have to store it locally in the memory on every DGS, dedicated game server, like we do now with the current prototype backend server-side object container streaming is using. Next question. To what degree is Quantum, the universe sim, in operation, if at all, currently? Chad replied, it's in heavy development. In fact, I just saw a really cool demo one of the designers threw together to show off progress. However, we aren't ready to show that publicly yet, more to come. And next question, in the future, will we be able to buy, rent hangars, apartments, areas in the verse for ourselves or our organisations? Chad replied, buying and renting spaces has long been part of our vision, although iCache and global persistence are key to make that possible. The follow-up question here was, have there been any changes to these ideas, and if so, could you tell us what they are? Yes, there have been changes, and if I could generalize it, I would say that with procedural planets and global persistence, we've afforded ourselves the possibility of being much more ambitious with these ideas than was originally thought possible. So more's coming. When will planets start orbiting was the next major question, with Chad replying, hey, here's at last one thing I get to say that is not dependent on iCache. There's many small issues that crop up when you turn on orbiting, which we've been able to do for years actually, as it causes many problems in gameplay systems. One example, navigation. Imagine you want to plot a route from a satellite to an outpost on a moon across the solar system. Depending on your ship, this might take quite a while, and by the time you get part of the way through the jump, the route you took can become invalid because it might be blocked by something that's moved into view. This isn't an insurmountable problem, and we have plans on how to deal with it, but we haven't done the work yet. Next question, will NPC spawn lockers be used to fake the dynamic universe sim and the spawning in of NPCs and all this sort of stuff, rather than having NPCs with full life cycles that was talked about originally? The spawn lockers are indeed going to be part of the long-term solution of the game, but there are some key details you may not be aware of. First, there is an assumption here that the entities spawned by these lockers are completely blank slates, and when they despawn, they are never seen again. This isn't going to be the case for all NPCs, as there's at least 2 mechanisms that we're working on and are going to use, which would result in similar behaviour to what you're looking for. First, there's going to be a class of NPC of higher importance that will have the same amount of virtual simulation even when no players are around. These NPCs could be part of a mission, for example, and their schedules and movement through the verse will be simulated in the back end. When you encounter one of these, they may spawn or leave an area via a spawn locker, depending on the circumstance, and you'll likely see them again later. Another case is that the backend will actually track entities that have been created via a character archetype creation service, and each of these entities will have various properties and tags that can be used to pattern match against future requests. That means, for example, if you possibly steal something from a shop or try to mug somebody and security gets called in dynamically, there's a chance the same security officer may bust you later or get called in for backup at a traffic stop. Given the scope of the world that we're trying to create, rate, it would actually be impossible to simulate all their schedules and every detail of their life. But we can split the difference by using a combination of dynamic creation, virtual simulation, and pattern-matched reuse to bring the kind of gameplay you're looking for. Spawn closets and spawn lockers are simply a way to get entities into or out of a place. However, the character archetype system is going to track these, so their scheduler may have them board a train, go to work, come back, get dinner, go to sleep, and yes, in some of those movement points there may be a spawn locker involved, but it doesn't mean that every NPC you see is only probabilistic. The idea is that Quanta and the other systems like the dynamic mission system will be able to use spawn lockers to facilitate helping move entities throughout the world, and when there are surges necessary, so security backup called or whatever, they have a way to get NPCs in the necessary areas without breaking immersion. Also, keep in mind that the spawn lockers won't be the only way that this can happen, as when you're out in the middle of space or in a random area on a planet, other mechanisms can be at work, like quantum travel spawned NPCs or dropships. Next question. With a number of features being bottlenecked because of iCache, how are resources being used in the meantime? What are people working on? Every case is different, so there isn't a single answer. In some cases, the teams are just working on something else. However, there are places where certain parts become available for internal usage and testing, so that feature can start to be developed against it even though it isn't entirely ready for release. So they're not wasting time is the idea there. Will you by any chance go back and fix all the known issues and game-breaking bugs at some point? It has always been a balance we have to strike between bug fixing and feature development and generally getting movement towards a 1.0 full release. We could stop what we are doing and really focus on wiping out the bugs, but the next patch there would be very light on features, and also when you work on new features often bugs can reoccur, or the system that had the bug is modified or even removed, so the issue is that you're always aiming at a moving target. Games that don't have to support a live product have the advantage they can let things get broken in various ways, and then when they're finishing the game, they can get all those fixes in. Towards the end, you have a big push to polish and finalize things off, and often land with a day one patch to boot. For live games though, you have to keep things afloat while simultaneously trying to keep moving forward, so in the end it's a balance, and the more you focus on bug fixing, the longer your dev goals might take. Do the devs use rubber duck debugging? So for people that don't know, that's literally you explaining your code to a rubber duck or an imaginary person. So you sort of logically check through your code, catch anything that you might have missed. Mark Abent famously has a literal rubber duck on his desk for exactly this. But yeah, rubber ducking is very common, and oftentimes I'll have someone call me or walk over and ask me a question, only to stop themselves halfway through and say thanks, and then walk off. Will the new elevator panels support quick press F? They don't currently. They could optionally add that functionality back in again. They're going to run it by the UI team and see what they think, so we might get that functionality back for the elevator panels, but it is much more of a tactile experience now. What's happening with combat assistance and mission and contract pop-ups? The service beacons and contracts are something we plan on revisiting, including better handling for the notifications. We have scheduled work for a new notification system that will allow for queuing into a Mobilglass app so that we don't just have constant screen spam. They're going to have configurable filters for muting different types of notification. The service beacons and other gameplay systems will be ported over to that new system, and hopefully that will get you some peace and quiet. I'm actually very happy to hear that, because you do see a lot of pew 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 pew. This player needs help, this NPC needs help constantly. I don't want to see that if I'm busy and if I'm recording. Why can't we use our Mobilglass when in range to spawn or store ships? There are plans to address the state of spawning and hangars, including from where these operations can be invoked. I don't want to go into too many details yet, as I'm not entirely certain what has been made public, but the goal is to improve here. How will coordinates be managed for each star system? Each solar system will use the full 64-bit range, and we will use unique zones for each of these solar systems to differentiate coordinates from various systems. And that's it for the dev response this time. There was a lot of meaty information there on iCache and Dynamic Universe stuff, and Chad is extremely good at getting involved and answering the community's questions. I'd like to thank Chad for all that he does, because this is really useful information. He takes the time to go out of his way to answer a load of community questions, and then it allows me to make a video pretty easily based on his responses that's actually quite important for the sort of evolution of Star Citizen. But what do you think? A lot is planned to start coming together online properly for 2021, it seems, with like the iCache and server meshing and a lot of this stuff potentially coming in that Chad was talking about, or at least some of it. Do you think orbiting moons and planets is really cool, or potentially far too much trouble? Do you think iCache is causing lots of delays with other systems, or are the devs easily able to work on other elements of the game in an efficient manner while waiting for its completion? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you though in the comments below. Every month we have a Star Citizen ship giveaway. For October 2020, it is for a Mercury Star Runner. This highly anticipated multi-role ship is going to be great for small to medium-sized crews that want to do a bit of everything, whether that be cargo running, data running, missions, combat, smuggling, all that sort of jazz. And it's going to be in-game and flyable very soon. All you've got to do to be in for a chance of winning one is comment on any of my videos made during October, including this one. More details down below. What am I shilling for today, I hear you ask? Do you hate it when people steal all of your money and your house over the internet? I know I do. NordVPN may have been invented by wizards to help protect your personal data from the prying eyes of the dark web, a sinister cabal of technomancers that grow in power the more they know about your browsing habits. The true story of NordVPN's origins are unknown and lost to the ages, and without using facts, no one really knows how it provides more accessibility to otherwise censored websites or a safer security experience for all that use it. All I know is that it does, and that when you sign up to it, the power level of my bank account grows, and I use it, and maybe you should too.